Well, I'm going to start backwards today and say good evening to everybody over in the UK, and good afternoon to everybody on the East Coast, and good morning for our West Coast followers. And my name is Tom, and I'm a recovered alcoholic. Welcome to Recovery Live, our weekly Friday live stream where we talk everything recovery. April 22nd. We just can't wait for the spring to be sprung, and it's springing more and more around here. Um, and I want to welcome our co-host today, your favorite Casera, to join me on the show today. Hi, Casera. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Casera was just telling me about the test she took last night for
Yes, I
school.
didn't enjoy it.
Mm.
Not a fan, but it's
And
over. So
Casera and I have the same issue with tests, and that's if we don't get 100. I mean 100. We have a problem with it. Now, this will feed into what we're going to be talking about today, which that's a little bit of perfectionism. But in my case, just the idea that I was in school trying for 100
hmm
was a big deal. But those 97s, right? They drive us crazy.
they really get to me. I can't handle it.
Anyway, we're really proud of Casera with all the work she does, and she's down there knocking
Thank
it
you.
out with school. She's going to be valedictorian or whatever it is. We'll have to watch her graduate.
Maybe.
Um, Want to welcome everybody. There's Tom Clancy. Hey, Tom, you're the first one on today. Great. Well, the first one coming on with a comment. Um, I want to start with some great news. We've been talking. Hey, Melissa McManus is from Wales today, joining us. Hi, all. Very good. Um, we've been working hard getting the retreats in May going, and I know that you guys probably heard us talk about last week that it looks like May will be the largest retreat attended month in the history of Came to Believe. Now, somebody might come on from way back and say there was another time, but in all the time I've been in, I don't remember 4 retreats going and have them like mostly sold out.
hmm
So, Casera, we were dealing with the Loma Mar Retreat, which is in Redwood Glen, is in Loma Mar, California, which is our Bay Area retreat. The first one that we're doing sold out. Guys, not only was it sold out, we had to get two additional buildings in order to house people, and we got commuters, right, Casera? I mean, what
Yep.
you've been going crazy.
Yeah, it's exciting though. Always just because I'm in registration constantly and watching consistently almost every day. Someone and multiple people were registering, and now it's literally sold out and more because there's a waiting list. So some people are also hoping someone else cancels so they can come too. So and especially for it being it's the first retreat there, knocked it out of the park on that one.
It's a big deal. I mean, it's a blessing and a curse because it's upset that we have to turn people away is not a good thing because we don't want this message, but that so many people want to come and hear this message, and they're all newcomers. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, we have a leadership team, but the leadership team is really the minority of the group. So it's going to be fantastic. Autumn McCullough from Apopka, she's on today. How are you, Autumn? I'm going to see Autumn in a couple weeks down at Leesburg. Carrie Toon, hi Carrie. She's in Indiana, Illinois. She's going to yell at me for not knowing which one it is. uh, Carrie is working. We're working closely with Carrie to have a retreat there in August. I think that'll be a first one too, Casera. That's going to be fun. I know you've been in the background working on that. There's our old faithful, Doc Roth, Las Vegas, joining us. How are you, brother? So along with that, Casera, so the next weekend we have Leesburg and the Wisconsin retreat at the
Mm-hmm.
sanctuary, and that one's sold out.
Yep, just about. There's only about probably 3 spots left at this point, so I'm guessing probably next week it's that one's going to be sold out as well.
Right. So, and Leesburg is rolling, and so is
Mm-hmm.
Nevada City, because
Mm-hmm.
then a week after that, we'll be back in California. 2 retreats in California in 2 weeks. They're not in the same area, guys. One's in the foothills of the Sierras, Nevada
Mm-hmm.
City, and it's beautiful at a Salvation Army camp. But that one too is approaching full. That one has much
Mm-hmm.
larger capacity. I don't know that we'll sell that one out,
Yeah,
but
there's still a lot
it's
of people.
fantastic. Right. It's still a lot of people. So we think, it could be, several hundred, 250 people to 300 that go through our retreats in the month of May. What a month.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's exciting.
Exciting. And then I'm still looking at, we're potentially going to be back in City Team at the beginning of June. And then right now it looks like we're going to be in Kansas City also in the middle of June, and then out to Arizona to see Taryn, who may be on here anytime. I know Taryn watches from YouTube. Can YouTube put comments up, Kasara? Or only
I think so.
Facebook?
I think YouTube can, and it'll come up as well, and it will show that it's from YouTube.
All right. So very, very busy month for us and for me, traveling all around for all these new retreats. It's really something to be able to do it. Today we're going to be talking, or at least partly, we're going to talking about the good things that come with recovery and things, how our lives expand. We had a guest that that was on about 5 minutes ago, right? And then had an internet issue, and we'll see if she comes back on. We'll bring her right back on, but we're going to call an audible today, and we're going to talk about that and some other things Kasara and I can talk about. We're going to ask a normie, because Kasara's a normie, kind of. No comment, right? Kind of. Tim Seitz is with us in Wisconsin. How are you, Tim? But this program of recovery, for any of you that are listening, what we do at Came to Believe Recovery is we just present the program of the founders of AA. We got our teachings from Clarence Snyder, who sponsored Steve Foreman. And Clarence was sponsored by Dr. Bob. And Dr. Bob brought him through the steps a certain way, which is how they were doing it back in the 30s. And Clarence took Steve through it that way. And Steve took a bunch of us, not me particularly, but somebody that Steve took through. And so we got it right, back. We're about 2 generations away from the guys that wrote this book that started the whole thing. Because there's 12 steps are in everything, right? Mm-hmm. And so it must. I always say this, at some point it must have been really, really successful to have caught on so much and been bled into everything. And that's what we wanted to do. We wanted to bring it back to that. And our mission today is to make sure that our option is out there for as many people as possible. We know there's other ways for people to get recovered, and people need different paths, and there's different things. But we also want them to know that this might be the path for you. And if it is, people are getting recovered quickly, and going on with wonderful lives, which is what we're going to talk about pretty soon. There's Taryn. Good morning from beautiful... YouTube. From YouTube. She must have heard me say that, and then she commented. Taryn and I go way back. We met at a retreat in California, I think 25 years ago, she's going to say. And it was like her first retreat, I think, or second. And it was not my first or second, but we slept in teepees, and that's all I'm going to say about that.
Interesting.
We had a better experience than I did. But I was much younger then, so I can handle it then. I'd love to. Let's talk about a little bit. Doc Roth was there too. Let's talk a little bit about. I want to talk a little bit, Kasara, and then we can go on to some general subjects about how you and I are different. And how we see things differently, and that was good. And I mean, it just is, right? I have something that you don't. You have something I don't. When we talk about recovery today, I think it's got a real negative connotation. I think in a lot of people's minds that this person who's recovered is constantly struggling and suffering and always less than, And your experience, I know when you're working with them, do you feel like that in some ways is either the public perception or even some of the people who are in its perception that when they get recovered, it's just going to be this boring struggle?
I think that it's a little bit of both, and it's a little entangled and enmeshed as well. I think like the public's perception is that when people are recovered, well, I think the public generally is like people are never recovered. So I think that's just the public perception, is that people are always recovering. And then I think like public wise, they're like what are they gonna do now? Like they're gonna. I've heard people say like, oh, now they just smoke 3 packs a day. Oh, they've traded one addiction for another. Like, oh, they run a lot. They've traded one for another. Right? That's always. It's never like separate. It's like everything equates to, oh, it has to be an addiction because they once were using substances or were drinking. Like I feel like for some reason people can't just disconnect. And then I think people who are recovered or who enter recovery might hear that perception and internalize it and then think, yeah, what am I supposed to do now? But I think part of it also is, and you've said this before, it's kind of like, who am I now? What am I supposed to be doing now? Because at one point in time, you don't really know who you are, and you don't know, like, you're completely changing. You're entering a whole new world. And it's true, like maybe all of the things that you were doing, you're like, how do I go to a concert sober? How do I do this without drinking or without using? Because that's the only way maybe a person has known how to do that, how to have fun. They've never kind of sat with themselves and had fun just reading or playing guitar or doing something else. So I think part of it's like an internalization of the public perception, but also it's like you're in no man's land. What do you do? That's just how I.
Well, you're hitting things on the edge from experience of what people told you, and then I had to live all that, where anything I do is viewed from the public in many cases through that lens. You know, I did begin exercising a lot in earnest, and then everybody has this little red flag, you know, don't be careful, Tom, don't do too much exercise, you know, you're overdoing it. And it's, you know, the other people in the gym that are doing more than me, nobody's saying they have an addiction. You know, it's that scarlet letter thing that we try to shake off, and we all have to deal with it. It's there for us. Yeah. And you're so right about, I used to say who I was then, I didn't change to something else. I became who I was supposed to be. The changed was what I was when I was in the addiction. And who I was supposed to be is now, but I didn't know who I was. I think I stayed in for a month, Casera, at least a month, several months in addiction, because I didn't know what I was going to do if I wasn't drinking and drugging. Just like you said, I had no experience with a life that wasn't surrounded with everything that was involved in that. And it's scary. I don't know what to do. I assumed I had no experience at all. And that's a tough thing. I remember clearly one of the first Saturdays that I was sober, and I really didn't know what people did on Saturday morning. And I drove around the corner in my town, and it was 8 o'clock in the morning, something like that. And there were these people out in strollers, and people were happy and drinking coffee. And it seems like maybe it's such a small thing to you, but it was huge to me, profound, like, wait a minute, there is a whole world that I never knew about.
I think that's exciting.
It's exciting, but it was, you know, and then and that was inspiring a little bit to say, okay, maybe there is more to this recovery. Now, luckily I came through this program where they quickly were telling me that you can have a life, you can have it. You know, that thing where we always have that stigma from the public, that's that thing that has us recovering, you know, Casera, because it's like you always have that monkey on your back, whatever it is, from the public. And we try to break that so much when we tell people that you have recovered, you've come out of the hole, and now you're just dealing with the same problems everyone else is. But it is a process to have those people around us. Part of it is we got to just walk it out. You know, we've trained people how to deal with us 20 or 30 years. And then a year, 6 months later, they're like, yeah, but for 20 years you were one way. Now you've been this way. They're always looking at you. And you're like, when am I ever going to shake it off? To this day, I still have some people, especially family members. If I were to do one little thing out of character, they can have a little
question, make comments.
Mm.
I think it's so interesting, especially what Melissa commented, how like everything people think is linked to whatever substance of choice someone might be using. Um, and I always think of it in like physical terms because for some reason that's easier. People understand like a different, like having diabetes or something. People can be like, oh, okay. And then it switches to substance use. But like everything someone does if they have diabetes is not linked to that diabetes. Like they just live with diabetes, but that's not who they are.
Right,
Right. Like,
right.
that is not who you don't look at someone and be like, diabetes, like that's who they are. Like that's not a thing. And that's not, most things are not like that. Like I could, yell at you and you wouldn't be like, that's just who she is. She's just mean. No, like I might have been having a bad day and I yelled, but like that's not who I am. And I think that's this very similar. People just look at someone and say, you are a user, or people say you are an addict, and that's it, period. That's who you are. No, that's a piece of your life. Like you're living through that. And then you become recovered. And now it's like, to me, it's like having a newborn child. You're like, okay, let me get to know you. I don't know who you are. Like, I do not know anything about you now. I knew who you used to be. I knew what was going on over here. But like, I feel like people should look at it. And obviously, this is easy for me to say, not having someone directly, like a really close family member that is recovered. But I have some friends, and like, look, when they tell me stories, I'm like, wow, because who they are right now is not at all. I can't even. It's like you. I can't pick. I'm like, what? You had an alter ego that like isn't attached to you, and I think that's so like that could be a way that we teach people is it's a whole new person. They were just literally born yesterday. So now you have to get to know them. You know nothing about them. You know literally nothing. You don't even know what they like. You don't know what they like to eat. You don't know what they like to do on Saturdays. You don't know the activities they do. Like we're just starting over and getting to know this brand new person and finding out who they really are.
It's so, and that's why I would never call myself an alcoholic. Like you're saying, I'm not an alcoholic. I'm a recovered alcoholic. I don't act that way. I don't have that. I'm this new person. And I love that you can't picture me in that world. And I get a lot of that when I meet people today. I'll meet them and I'll talk to them after a while and they'll come up to me and go, well, I just can't really, you were that way. And I'm like, yeah, I was that way for all this time. But that's recovered, that's living in the go. That's the new life that we get. If you do and embrace it with whatever path, and our path is going through the 12 steps the way the founders did it and grasping onto that spiritual experience and then living that 10, 11, and 12 and keeping track of those things that could trip us up. Hey, Tim Anderson is with us today. Did you see that?
Mm-hmm.
Anderson, and we should have Tim on one of these days. Tim, if you wanted to, we could bring Tim on. He's a normie. You should send Tim the link. If you're around, Tim, you could come on. Send Tim the link. You have Tim's thing, right? He's a normie.
I can send him the link if he decides.
Tim, if you want, Tim. I don't know where he is. There's some great comments here that I want to bring a couple of these comments up. Taryn had a great comment, a couple of good ones here. Let me show you what Taryn Price out in California says. Being recovered, we grow by continually uncovering, discovering, and discarding the old thinking to walk out an actual life we live. I love that. That's really great. And Melissa says this. I once had someone say I was chasing after a high because they had 3 espressos. Then, of course, Doc has to say, no, it's 4, right? It's not until it's 4, then you're chasing. Anyway, let's see. So that new life, let's talk about it a little. Let me talk about what I did a little bit. Because Sarah, when I got sober and decided I was going to.
Sorry.
Dina?
Everyone, this is my dog. Oh, wait, you can't see her. Well, she's in the corner. She likes to bark out the window, so I apologize.
Okay.
She's
I was 42 years old and, had really been a failure at really everything except for drinking and drugging. I was good at that, if you can be good at that. And had not really known who I was or what I was, just like you said, because I was trying to figure out what is, and knew there was something missing. And I just didn't know. And when I finally did hit that bottom and needed to, and made that decision, and then sought the help that I got through the process that I went through, I was encouraged and was encouraged by the process that made me realize that I could be better. I could be something. I could be victorious at things. I could be successful at something. And I decided I'm going to write some of the wrongs or bucket list things. And I was the only one in my family, I'm one of 6, that hadn't gone to college. All my brothers and sisters, master's degrees, lawyers, blah, blah, blah. And I hadn't done anything. So I decided to go back to school at 42. I hadn't been in school in 22 years. The last paper I wrote by hand. So it was a little bit unnerving. But 4 years later, I graduated with a 4.0. And 2 years after that, I graduated with a master's degree. And of course, I always say this isn't to applaud myself. It's just to say, if I could do it, so can anyone else. But there's life after this. But I did that. And while I was doing that, I was getting relationships. I was growing. I was living a life like Terrence says. I was part of society, part of the community, part of our culture, and doing everything I could to bat away some of the stuff we were talking about, which is everybody looking at me, watching you really closely with what you're doing. But it made a big difference to me to see success. And that's why we always say to people, go. Because when I got that first A, Sarah, I didn't remember A's ever in school. And the first paper I wrote, I got an A, and I thought, they're just doing that. They're just trying to suck me in, right? I don't know. But it was a big deal for me. I don't know if any of you guys out there can understand. If you came from such failure and such never, there's this A that I went, well, wait a minute. I could do this. I guess what I've been doing works. What all these people have been telling me, and then I ran with it. And then I also ran with running around the country telling everyone else, and I still do it.
Yeah, I feel like that's what a lot of people kind of don't get to, because they get stuck like, it's never good, like, what life is there to live now? Like, what am I supposed to do? But it's about, you have to take that step. You have to kind of put yourself out there and hope and work to make sure that you are successful. And what would you, like, if you had to give one piece of advice to people that are in that point where they're stuck and they have fear holding them back because they've never experienced that A before, so they don't know that they can achieve it. They're just hoping. What would be one piece of advice you would give them?
That's really
Gotcha. I know.
Yeah, you put me on the point. Well, you're thinking. I will tell you what my sponsor said to me. First of all, I was taught, I hope that you go through a program that tells you that you can change, and that there's a power that can change you, and that once you're changed, there are things now that you can do because you're not defined by this old character anymore. But I would say this: set small goals, short-term goals and long-term goals. Pick something that you can achieve, that you think is achievable, something small. And that would be my advice. Go, whatever it is, decide to do a pull-up, decide to just join the gym. One short-term goal, just do one thing, and you'll see that success. And once you see that success in that, it can suck you into everything else. So I would say, embrace the recovery and set a short-term goal. Does that make sense?
Yeah. That's good advice. I like that.
Let's see. And it was really good advice for me, because Sarah, I mean, I had never set any goals. So we sat, and my sponsor said to me, now what? All right. Now your life, things aren't going to be handed to you. And yeah, you had this and you have all these issues. Well, how are we going to start digging out of this? Let's pick one thing and set these short-term goals. So I guess get a good sponsor is also another piece of advice.
Good one.
Right. Somebody who has what you want, guys. We always say, what's a good sponsor? Somebody that you want what they have. We would say somebody that's been through our program, but somebody that has what you want. And we sat down and did that. And then I was off to the races, because I quickly, and I was told right away, you'll be okay doing this stuff. Don't set
Mhm.
big, long goals like, you know, that aren't attainable immediately, because
Yeah.
that could feed our thing. Yeah.
Mhm.
Melissa McManus says, see what she says. So much fun in recovery. See, that's what's fun. Because she probably wasn't even in when she was drinking. There was no safari that she was going to with her kids. It's funny that not only do we have fun, we have things that we would never have done before. So one of the other things I did, which is one of these things, Sarah, where I started to, as I was getting success in things, and I found that I was following through,
Mhm.
because that I was never doing before, because I'd set these short-term goals and I was found that I had the power to do that. I'd always wanted to play guitar. And once or twice, I think in my 20s or late 20s, I tried to start and I could never do it. So when I got sober, not long after, I said, you know what? I'm going to try again. And so I taught myself, took some lessons and things. And today, that along with going to the gym are two things that are like therapy to me.
Mhm.
Like, I find so much enjoyment when I play, classic rock stuff that you probably would hate, you know.
I'm gonna shock the world right now because
Oh,
people always like gasp at me. I am not that into music. I know everyone. I know. Like I only listen to music to work out, and it's mostly so I don't think about like this really hurts right now. Why am I still running? Or it just a distract. I know it's crazy. Everyone always gasps, but I don't know why. It's not something that I know for a lot of people it like moves them and it just speaks to them. And I just the only thing that I've ever wanted. I used to play the flute when I was little. The only thing I've ever wanted to play besides that is the piano. Otherwise, just I don't know why.
I almost have to go lay down.
I know that's everyone's reaction. They're like, "What kind of music do you like?" I'm like, "I listen to country a lot," and everyone's like, and then I'm like, "But I don't like. It's not something I just put on. Like, I don't just put music on and sit and like vibe." I know. I'm sorry, everyone.
I and I'm so touched by it, and I don't know why. I've tried to look at, like, I've come to this realization that everyone is touched. So while I like this kind of music and I'll kid around about thinking classic rock is the best and all of that, whatever, I think when someone else is touched by it, there's something in our brains, our ears, our connection, that
There
it
actually is.
lights our life up.
No, it is. It's psychologically proven that music can change your mindset and your mood. My professor in undergrad, that was her research, is what she did research in, was music and how it can like basically alter like your brain
Right.
and what's going on. So that is real.
I heard, I can still remember that really, really clearly. I said something to somebody, some friends. I was like 12 or 13 years old. So this is a long time ago, because they were like 1975 or
Really
something.
dating yourself.
And I had some friends, and I was just getting to that age, and I had some of the neighbor, and the guys were older than me, and they were listening to this. It was all rock and roll-y stuff, the 70s stuff at the time.
Mhm.
And I had heard, and I said, I kind of like guitar solos. I like that stuff. That's something about it that had me. And so one of my friends said, have you ever heard this song on Led Zeppelin 2? Right. And it was records on a record with a needle.
My friends have record players. Okay, I know what a record
Yeah.
player is.
Well, they're going back to them today, but that's all there was back then. And he put the needle down on Heartbreaker. And any of you guys back from the day will know that song is, and I remember it touched me so deeply. I fell in love in 1 minute with everything about it. It lit me up. And, it was now 20 or 30 years later that I can play it a little bit.
Hmm.
Maybe one of these days I'll play it, at least the chorus of it. But, and it, guys, it does almost as much for me when I play it as it does when I heard it today, to be able to do it. But I am touched by music all the time, because Sarah, you know me, when we're in meetings outside, the music's always on in the background.
Yep.
I have music on all the time. It's silence is an issue for me. I think I have a little ADD. So silence is an issue in the car. No matter where I am, there's always got to be music on for me. But yeah, I think we got to sit you in a chair with headphones and just like, and you know what's good about this, Kasera, is because you're like a blank slate for music. We could just indoctrinate you into the Led Zeppelin Lovers Club.
It might work. I think I was born in the wrong era. Like I would like to go back in time and maybe the Roaring 20s, maybe the 80s. I could get down with that. My aunt always tells me I'm an old soul, so I feel like it definitely meant to be in a different time zone era.
Yeah, of course, Taryn's on your team. Thanks, Doc. Rocket Tom. Of course, finally I get a little thing. Taryn's we're to see Taryn in a couple months, so that's going to be sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly. It always materializes. That's good advice. So we have a lot of fun, and we're seeing a lot of these posts on the side here about everybody who's having fun. There's lots of fun.
I support the mini rave. I support the mini rave.
And you mentioned going to a concert sober, and I had to do that. You know, it was, and I don't know if you can imagine. I don't know that you, Kasera, can imagine this mindset where you cannot conceive of how you could do something not using drugs. I see that comment, Tim, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. If you came on, we would have a debate about it. Tim and I have a music debate. And bottom line is, Kasera, he's wrong.
Okay.
And I'm right because he's
not
on.
Easy.
But anyway, this had part of my learning. But as I was growing in other things that I thought weren't going to be okay, right? So I started learning. This is what step 10, these are the promises of the program, you know, intuitively know how to handle situations. This is stuff that I'm growing through to say it worked this time. Maybe it'll work for this too. It's exactly how this is supposed to work. So I went to a Tom Petty concert. It was my first sober concert. I went with a bunch of guys and they said, and I am never the designated driver on purpose these days. While I'll drive if someone's at it, I don't like to be used that way. They wanted to go to this concert and it was a free ticket. Tom, will you drive? You're not sure? Yes, blah, blah, blah. So I go to this concert, assuming I'm going to have to, you know, he wasn't my favorite artist. It was the best one of the best concerts I'd been to. The feelings, the connection to the music that I always got was every bit as real as it was when I was using, and maybe more so. It was really amazing.
Yeah.
Since then, I've been to a bunch of concerts. I mean, anybody that even knows me a little bit knows that I like Samantha Fish music just a little bit. You know, and so those experiences, though, that is what we all get over, Kasera, that you don't, you know, this change of life is that everything we did was defined by that. And now everything we did is not. So they're all brand new, like being a baby. You're right about what we're going to do. And then we're trying to do all this brand new stuff with everybody still looking at us like, well, you're in everything is through that lens. Hopefully we can break that with a lot of good education and people just understanding that in many cases we get healthier than those around us. Right, Taryn? She's going to say, right. We are healthier. I know Dale Barker will say that. He always says we have the right to be healthier than those around us. All right, so let's comment on Tim Anderson, right? So he says they have to expand my musical taste a bit. I agree with you, Tim. There's the Outlaws. There's Leonard Skinner. You know, there's Eric Clapton. There's a whole lot. There is a lot of a world out there. Samantha Fish. Believe it or not, Kasera, I go everywhere from John Denver to Led Zeppelin.
Nice little range.
How about that, Tim? Let's see if he has it. Samantha Fish. That's not what I meant, Tom. I don't know what it is. I can bust his chops. Just there we go. All right, Tim, we're gonna let you off the hook. He can't come on today, but he's watching. So I wonder how you think about this, Kasera. Like Sue Foreman will often talk about the. Let me step back a minute. Sometimes alcoholics in meetings, you'll hear them say, "I'm a grateful recovered alcoholic," and so you say, "Why would they be grateful?" right? I believe, for me especially, I mean, just for me, I can only talk about is that the life I live today, and the way I pursue it and the things that I've done are a result of an effort I make because I got recovered, because I was an addict.
Mhm.
I would never, it brought me to a place where I had to take a look, so deep a look at myself, but it fixed a whole bunch of stuff that I had, whether I was an alcoholic or not. And I'm still fixing. So Sue Foreman will say the disadvantage or the thing about a normie is they get along with life okay, right? With their defects. Like my defects were going to kill me because it drove me to drink. I had to clear them up. They don't kill you, probably. So the idea that these normies can go through life just okay, she calls it just okay.
Mhm.
Does that have any, I mean, I know you've been around us all a lot lately and all of that, but I wonder what you feel about that.
I think there is some truth to that because obviously what comes with substance use and drinking is like even different situations, like dangerous situations that I probably wouldn't just trip and fall into on accident. I feel like that's a part of, but I think it's also true, like with the grateful part, is like you have no choice but to hold up the mirror, or someone else is going to do it for you. Whereas, like maybe like me or and other people that haven't experienced that, like people might just be like, oh, she's just this way, whatever. It's not that big of a deal. It's not like she's not stealing anything. She's not doing this. She's not disappearing. This. So they're not going to force a mirror in front of me, even though I might need it. I might need to take a look in the mirror. I might have some things I need to work on and fix. It's not going to be like as like pertinent that they're like, we have to make her see her defects and look at it. And I wouldn't have looked at like a 4-step inventory unless I was at a retreat because I'm here. Like, so I wouldn't have done that. I wouldn't have looked at it. I wouldn't have like read through the legacy guide, had more of an understanding of the big book. And like, I wouldn't have had those things if I didn't come here because I wasn't in active use or active drinking. So I think
when you did, let's talk about that for a minute, because it's interesting. We see people come to retreats that are coming with friends. I'm not here for me. I'm here from someone else. Right. And they go through this and then they find out, wow, there is something I could look at when I'm told to look at it. When you did your 4th step, was there anything in there that you looked at and, through the teaching said, oh, maybe I do kind of do this and it is kind of a liability in my life? Did you have anything that popped out? Look, I'm putting you on the spot now.
I'm like, I can't remember like actual every like word right now. I feel like I'm gonna give myself some credit that I have gone through other things that have made me more self-reflective. I feel like if I didn't have that, I wouldn't been able to work in this field if I already didn't have a little bit going on. But I think that looking at that just kind of was a reminder that like I need to look at myself and look at what I'm doing, how I'm feeling, and things that I need to work on. And I think like some of it, I know one of the things was like being judgmental, and I was like, oof, like sometimes I feel like I'm quick to, even like not that I'm saying it out loud, but in my head I'm like quick to make a judgment, and I might become a little cynical side of things because of that judgment, and that's also not fair to people. I think I'm trying to think. There was a few things that I was like, ooh, I didn't really think about that as being something that I would need to like look at and really like sit with and work on. But I think I don't want to say it was enjoyable because one is looking at yourself and being like, oh, that's a problem, enjoyable, but it was beneficial. And it's something that I wouldn't have been doing. And after that, I did go out and I bought a gratitude book. I need to be better with using it, but like it's like I feel like I tend to be more negative, and that was something really I was like, I don't know why. Like I've never been an optimist. I would say realist into negative. Like I'm like plan for the worst, hope that it turns out okay, not the best, okay. So I bought a gratitude book to help like it's like name 3 things that like made you really happy today. Write about someone that you're grateful for. Write about something that happened to you that you're like grateful for, and things like that, to kind of like focus on those more positive things, which I wouldn't have done unless I went through that.
It's so, such a part of my life now too, is that because I identified those things that maybe I needed to work on, or that didn't work so well in me today. And this is the process that we teach in our 10, 11, and 12, is we say, this procrastinator, that resentment, fear, and the unhealthy kind of fear, that would have been, that's just who Tom is. If I was a normie, like you're saying, well, he's just that way, right? That's just who he is. I have to realize that fear and resentment were part of things that fueled the spirituality we called and helped that thinking, that mental twist, because we can't handle the fear. And then our lives were defined by it. We let it rule us.
Yeah.
Once we realize that if we engage in that, it may lead us back to the addiction. It was part of it. We have to watch it a lot closer. But the result is, we don't drink, and drug, that's one thing. But the other result is we live really healthy emotional and mental lives. That is a big surprise for a lot of us. All of a sudden we're like, wow, I have this emotional maturity that's gone way up. I wasn't even asking for that. I was just trying to not drink.
Yeah, you're just trying to get here.
Right. I go through my day and I go, wow, today was this, and I had this interaction with so-and-so. And I go, well, and the pastor would say, well, they're just so-and-so, and I might just be angry. And I say, well, that was because I let this in there a little bit. And this process of defining what has me doing this is a real blessing. That's the grateful part of it. And I think that's something, and I've heard this from normies who have greatly benefited from doing a program or some other program that does this. We're not the only ones that encourage people to self-reflect, and giving credit where credit. There are reasons in people's lives where they decide they need to self-reflect and they get better. But in our case, it really is something that freed me to a place. And I know we're going to see in our comment list things that, I had no idea I was going to be able to do so well in college. I had no idea I was going to be, I had no experience and no idea. And then some of the other things. Yeah. It's just fabulous.
I think that how you're saying you just have like a really high emotional, I call it an emotional IQ. Mm-hmm. I found that just coming into the field, and like you met Erika briefly. Yes. And she is someone that's very open and honest about how she's feeling, what's going on, what she's trying to figure out within herself, and how that's affecting like what's going on at work and what are we doing and things like that. Mm. And that really, being around her and other people that are in recovery and have these really high emotional IQs, like that really helped me just being in that setting and being around people like that. Because when someone else is so open like that, it allows you to give yourself permission to be open like that. And I'm telling you, I've never cried more in my life than when I started working there, because it was like all of this like things that I was just carrying around that I didn't even know that I was carrying around, like fears and resentments that like I didn't know, and I wouldn't label them that until I did the fourth step. When you said that, like, but just carrying things around, and then just them being so open and talking about it allowed me to start talking about things more and figuring things out and kind of like putting puzzles together on why I feel the way I do and all these different things in my life. And I'm like, I was just like, Erika would tell you, I just cried in her office so many times because it would just come out of me, because it just felt like this is what we do. Like they just kind of get it. And with the fourth step, when you said that, fear and resentment was one that took me by surprise, because I feel like I never like labeled the emotion I was feeling. And then fear, for me, like I've always had a lot of anxiety, and that also stems from like a little bit of perfectionism, because I never wanted to try something if I couldn't get it right the first time, I was not going to try it. Like it needs to be done right the first time, or else like I don't want to touch. And so even like I wouldn't go into a grocery store by myself. Like my mom would be like, yeah, go and ShopRite and get this. And I'd be like, haha, I'll walk home. Like I'll walk home. I'm not doing it. And it was like a fear that like they're going to ask me something, or I'm not going to have the right amount of money, or I'm going to forget. Like it was just a lot. And so many things were like that. And it took me so long and going through that and being around people that have been through so much more, and just them sitting and talking to me and helping me reflect and being in different situations, then looking at that force and be like, oh my God, I'm filled with resentment and it stems from like having anxiety and not feeling seen with that. And I was like, oh, and it allowed me too with the fear. Then I'll stop talking. I'm sorry. I know I'm going.
Okay.
But this is big. So my brother is graduating, I told you that. And he's gonna move, like he's not gonna move back home. He has a job there that he's the personal trainer. So he's gonna stay there. So he's telling me, and he's like, oh, I'm planning. And like the cynical side of me is like, you need to go home, you need to save up, like you don't know how hard it is, it's so expensive, like my partner and I saved up and we're, it's still tight, like you have to be smarter, because like he doesn't think long term sometimes. And then I stopped and I was like, what am I doing? And why? Like I felt like tense about it. And then I was like, felt bad because I should be encouraging him, but it was because I was putting my fear and things onto him. Like I was just like transferring it onto him and just like putting that out there, instead of like realizing that was just my own fears of that I have experienced and what I fear, and that's not necessarily his experience, and it doesn't have to be. And even if it was, it's not like, me, my older sister, my parents, like aunts, uncles, like we're all there for him too. And I had to, because I could label that from the 4th step and just emotional intelligence, I was able to like take a step back, and then I was like, but you're going to be okay. Like, just make sure you're smart. I just want you to like think about it more, make sure like you plan, you go.
Sometimes I wish I was more like that. Right. Like, I think we get, you're the way you are. And it's so good to be able to see, just because I'm this way doesn't mean you have to be. There's a lot of ways to succeed. And he's going to do that. That whole thing, that procrastination thing, that was big with me too, Sarah. If I couldn't get an A, if I couldn't do it perfect, I just didn't do it. So I don't know what we had that. But then people told me stuff like, a baseball player that has a 300 batting average, which means they're only successful 1/3 of the time, they go in the Hall of Fame.
That's
right. They said to me something like, what do you call a med student who gets B's? A doctor. Right. Now, I sometimes they don't like that, because I want my doctor to have gotten A's.
Yeah.
Of course, you and I would probably say there's something they didn't know. Right. If they didn't get, there's something, and that'll be the thing I go in for. Right. But that we don't have to be the perfect. We're not going to be perfect. That's the thing. But we can be perfect at who we are. And then I miss on things. You hit on something really great, because while you were letting your fear, and maybe a little control, but I think it was more your fear, your lens, you were missing an opportunity to connect with him and encourage him. And that's the gift of this, is that if I'm not in myself, and we turn it and we look out at other people and we understand, we don't miss things. We are able to see those things each day that can help somebody. Oh, we got to do the t-shirt giveaway. Did you just see that?
People are commenting. I've just been putting it up to remind them, so we're good.
All right. Let's see who we got. Michael Mangus. He said where he's from, and then we have somebody from Pittsburgh, and she's been on before. Sherry. Anna is back on. We see Anna from Kentucky. Josh Bach, Wesley. Very good. We're maintaining a nice group today. So are you ready to do this? We're not going to do the shirt yet. A couple minutes, right?
Yeah, just give a few more.
Yeah, we got hashtag recovered in there.
Just commented.
Yeah. Alaska. Oh my. I love it. All of a sudden we're getting everybody come in to tell us where they're from. I was meeting with a bunch of people, as you know, this week in New York City, because there's an effort behind the scenes to be able to make us sustainable. You know that, because that we're working to try to be able to go to city teams and present this program to those people, least, last, and the lost, who have no resources, and us to have enough resources, and we mean money, to be able to do those kind of things. We're trying to engage in some people. And I went to dinner with some normies, and then I was with some people that weren't normies. It's really interesting through life. But I would never be going in the city and dealing with the New York City like that if I wasn't sober. Guys, I've had so many experiences. I think this was such a great conversation, by the way, Kasera, today, about how you and I think, and how we think a lot differently. And now at the end, we're more alike than I maybe would have said before.
Don't tell anyone.
Like in those
I'm gonna deny it.
In the idea that you have brokenness too, and I had brokenness that was different in that this. But I've had so much. I mean, I wouldn't trade, and I know we say this in our fellowship, is that our worst day today is better than our best day when we were using. That's for sure. And you're right. This thing that we have that normies like you don't have is this meeting, this group of fellowship that we can go talk about all this stuff all the time. Now you actually have access to it now, but we will sit in meetings sometimes and go, where does anyone else get to come and talk about this stuff? You know, and get to fellowship with each other, get to connect and say, I had this success today and I'm having this struggle and I'm working on this defect, and help, and that we're all looking to get better. It really is it's a blessing of this whole thing, that this fellowship allows us to get close.
Yeah, I think that's one of the best things, also, like a best side effect of working within the field and like stumbling my way in was finding a community of people that want to talk about it. And like part of it too, like I was going through something with some people and I was sitting with my coworkers talking about it, and I'm like, this is what I did, and I'm like, I'm looking at, okay, like obviously it takes two to tango, so what have I done in the situation for them to act this way? Yeah. I mean, and they're like, you're doing the steps, and I was like, what are you talking about? They're like, you're reflecting, you got some amends to make. I was like, what? But like it's helpful to everyone, and sometimes you're doing it and like I didn't know, because I didn't know about steps yet. So it's definitely helpful now, knowing more and learning more and talking to people and like retreats and things like that, to be able to like put a name to what I'm feeling and have actions I can take to make sure that, you know, I'm the best that I can be on any given day too.
I forget what I was just going to say.
I know.
What were you saying right before that? Yeah. What were you saying right before that? That
everyone needs, you know, a group to go talk.
Oh, yes. And that's why we are open to everyone. I mean, that was a great point. I mean, just guys, if you're listening, just listening to Kasera talk about what she's gotten at, this is why we're open. This is why we tell anyone they can come. This step process is for anybody. It can help anybody. Practice principles in spite of our personalities. We know there's a set of principles, thanks, Taryn, that we practice. We say, and it's just straightforward stuff, right? Who wouldn't benefit from getting control of those character defects, those things that have their life miserable, and being able to deal in the world, in work, with their children, with their parents, with everyone else in a healthier way? Who wouldn't benefit from that? The whole world would benefit from that. So we keep going, guys. We're going to keep going, and we're going to be here every Friday. I'm going to start traveling. I'm going to be off. Next week is the UK takeover, isn't it?
Yes. Yes, it is. So get ready.
So I know we're ready for the UK takeover. So next week will be Dee Cuniff, and I'm not sure who she has on, so we'll have to see. Do you know who she's bringing on with her?
I think Melissa's coming on. I know if Melissa was available, she said, and then a bunch of other people. Also, Melissa, I saw your comment, so thank you. I think a lot of people She said she's bringing everyone. I think a whole team's coming on, so we'll see.
Well, they're going to need a lot to take us out, right? Because well, you'll be here. You can always knock them out.
Yeah, I'll be in the background.
And then the week after that, I'll be in California for the Loma Mar Retreat, and we'll come to you live from Redwood Glen. And Alicia Martinez will be with me, and she'll be my co-host, and we'll be live there, and we'll see who else we bring on with us. I know you'll be around. I think that one, right? And then the next week, down in Florida from Leesburg, I'll be probably coming live from you from Winter Park, and then the week after that, we'll be coming live from Nevada City again. So guys, we've got some remote broadcasts, and we'll be bringing some people in from the retreats, a lot of good stuff, and really interaction next week with people coming to the retreats. Of course, we still have our program that we'll be following, but we're going to be out there. Join us and see what happens at these retreats, and comment, and we'd love to see you guys at a retreat one of these days. Let's do the t-shirt giveaway. So you guys, everybody that did hashtag recovered, we're ready. Wonder how many Doc Roth has.
A lot. I feel like he wins often.
Tim Doyle, that would be good for Tim Doyle. Tim Doyle down there in Missouri. Tim, all right. I'm going to see Tim next weekend, actually. That's where I'm heading out. We're going to be bringing a retreat there in June in Missouri, Kansas City. I spent a few months in Missouri. We called it Misery, Casera. Way back in 1984. It's where I did boot camp, Fort Leonard Wood. Well, I couldn't get out of Missouri fast enough.
Well, that makes sense in that case. So.
And I'm not sure I've ever been. I think when I went to New Mexico, we drove around Missouri. That's a joke. I didn't care that much. Right. But I'm going to be there next week with Tim.
You can bring him a t-shirt. You don't have to mail it.
I'm going to bring him the t-shirt.
Yes.
There we go. Tim, put your size in the. Well, I'll be talking to you later, Tim. I think I'm going to call you this afternoon. I'll bring you your shirt. Yes, that's a good thing. I could even bring him a sweatshirt. Oh no, did I say that?
Well, you said it out loud. Everyone heard you. So.
All right. Well, thanks everybody. Have a great weekend. The weather's good here in New Jersey. I think we're going to have a nice weekend on the warm side. Reach out, cametobelieverecovery.org. There's meetings, there's retreats coming. Sign up if you can, and comment, share. And thanks again, Casero. And we'll see you guys in 2 weeks. You'll see me in 2 weeks. All right. Have a great weekend, everybody.